Ever pinch pennies all year for that one family vacation only to feel the budget blues afterwards? If so, I was just like you. After 3 vacationless years, I stumbled on credit card rewards travel and cracked the code to amazing vacations that I could actually afford.
Welcome to Wonderland on Points. In this podcast, you will discover how opening credit cards strategically can save you thousands on travel. We're not just dreamers anymore. We're 2 adventurous moms turning dreams into reality. Join us as we spill all the points and miles secrets.
And contrary to popular belief, you don't have to spend $1 million to earn 1,000,000 points. Traveling on credit card points isn't reserved for those with overflowing bank accounts. It's for everyday people like you and me, learning to turn routine expenses into free travel.
Consider us your points travel guides. This is Wonderland on Points. Let the adventure begin. Welcome back to the Wonderland on Points podcast. We are excited you're here, and we're excited for today's episode because, Joe, it's me and you, girl. We love our guests. We have such great guests. They bring so much knowledge. But today it is just me and you in the studio
Just
together.
the 2 of us. Wait, I don't even know. I don't even know the words other than like just the 2 of us.
My best friend growing up was deep in a Will Smith era during that time. So I knew all of those songs.
Hilarious. Well, that is what is echoing in my brain. And I'm excited. I love our guests, but it's kind of fun when it's just me and you, which I don't know. Have we told people yet that we're going on a podcast retreat coming up?
Super excited about that. I opened my Hyatt app today, and that is the next trip that's listed for me because I just last night actually came back from a journey, and now our podcast retreat is the next one listed. So I'm pumped.
It is not my next one. It is my second because, and in fact, I might just dive right into this right now because this is what I was going to talk about anyways. My next one is Salt Lake City next weekend.
Whoop, whoop.
And actually, I think when this airs, I will have just returned because I was gifted a ticket to the Women in Travel Summit. And this was just another one of those very transformative moments in my life where I'm like, points and miles has changed everything. Because there is no chance that even if I was gifted this multi-hundreds of dollars ticket previously, I would not have been able to jump on this opportunity because I would not have been able to just scrounge together the flights and the hotel last minute. But I had points. And I got a super amazing Delta flight, which first of all, I'm so used to flying Southwest that I'm feeling like very fancy to be flying Delta. And I got an emergency exit row seat so I can stretch out my long legs. I was like, why has nobody snatched this up yet? But the flight was like very empty. So it's actually funny because I was like, should I choose this emergency row seat next to a person, or should I choose like a fully empty row near the back of the plane and hope nobody else sits there? I went for the emergency row next to a person. It was the window seat. So,
oh yes, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and it's a nonstop flight. I was able to transfer my points from Chase to Air France with a 25% transfer bonus and get the flight for 13,000 points. The Southwest flight was over 20,000 points, and it was not nonstop. So, not a good option there, even though I did have a bunch of Southwest points, and I was tempted to just use them and hold on to my Chase points. But anyways, the whole point is that I was able to get a really nice Hyatt 3 minutes from the conference venue on points. It's a Regency. It's got great reviews. I'm really excited. And then I was able to get these flights and I totaled it all up. And this would have been close to $1,000 in flights and hotels. I would never have been able to go.
Wow. I love that you were able to capitalize on the transfer bonus. That's so great.
It was really, really fun. It was actually my first time transferring to Air France. And just the fact that you can actually book a Delta flight with that small amount of points because you're utilizing the alliances. I was like, oh, I got goosebumps all over my body. And I kind of had like an adrenaline rush as I was doing it. I was like, someone else is going to take this ticket. It's going to disappear. I'm not going to be able to do it. Like I was getting
How
worked up.
how instant did your points transfer? So you sent them from Chase, you went to transfer the points, it showed you the bonus, you sent them to Air France. How instant was that? Because there are some transfers that can take a couple days. Most of them are instant, but not everything. So were yours pretty instant?
It was instant, but it actually gave me a momentary freak out because I refreshed the page. There they were. I could see them. So I go to book the flight and it kept telling me I did not have enough points. I'm like, sir, I can see them. Like I see them. It says right at the top of the page how many points I have. So I don't know why I've personified this website as a man.
He's a
But
French man. You got to add an accent too.
he's a French man and he did not like me, but it's okay. I don't think my French accent is very good. I do have a few good accents I can pull out, but I don't think that's one of them. Anyways, I ended up having to close the browser. I think I was using Safari and came back in through Chrome, tried again, and that worked. So, crisis averted, but I was scared. I was so
Yeah,
scared.
it does. Your heart skips a few beats while you're waiting on the transfer to
Uh,
happen.
Honestly, yeah. And I think if I was booking like some business class award flight and there was only like one or two seats left on the plane, like I truly cannot imagine the level of adrenaline. And someday I will experience it and I might like it. It might feel like being on stage. For those of you who do not know, I was a theater major once upon a time. So that used to be my thing, is that like rush of terror and also exhilaration of being in front of a crowd of people. That's how it feels to be booking
Yeah.
an award flight. Well, you had a pretty fun little overnight just recently, and I know we're not going to dig super deep into it, but you want to give a little taste?
Yeah, when you said theater major, it made me think of the cutest little story. So, we did go to a Broadway play, which we'll save that for another day. We went to see
Oh,
Aladdin.
oh, good. I was gonna start singing a song from it, and then I was like, "Oh, is it a secret?" Arabian Night.
Nice.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We are
Yes,
amazing. We should be a duet.
yeah, I don't think you want me in that duet, but I will join. Anytime someone's singing, I will join in. Now, for better or for worse, but I will join in.
That's what I love so much about you.
You can count on me to back you up.
That honestly, I've never asked for anything more than that in my life, and that's all I want. And no one ever does it. I think I've mentioned that before. Anyways, continue.
So we had the Broadway experience, which was great. But another little Broadway experience we had was we went to this little diner called Ellen's Stardust Diner. Have you heard of it?
I have not, but I saw your Instagram stories this morning, and I was like, "What is this? What is this magic?"
It has your name written all over it. Well, it has my name. It has Ellen. But it is somewhere that you would absolutely, it's like a dad joke, some kind of corny dad joke.
This is a pun, and I loved it.
It definitely is a place that you need to add to your itinerary next time you find yourself in New York City. It is the cutest little diner. The food is only so-so, but you don't go for the food. You go for the entertainment. So all of the servers, the waiters, they are aspiring Broadway stars. So they multitask. They're serving you, they're taking orders, they're filling up your drink while they have a microphone in their hand, singing songs. They're climbing up on top of the booths and like walking. They're throwing confetti, throwing straws. There's a disco ball. It is so fun.
Honestly, though, how? Because I've been a server. Maybe it's my ADHD that does not allow me to multitask to that level, but how? So
They
impressive.
are unbelievably talented. And they do at one point like pass around a tip jar. They have your gratuity is included, which is a good thing to know. 20%
Love that.
gratuity is included in the ticket already when you get your receipt. They have a tip bucket that they pass around that they say is only for dance classes, vocal classes, things that are going to help them on their Broadway auditions. And they say, we hope that you will come back here, but when you come back, we hope that we are not here because we are all trying to make it on Broadway. So that's so
sweet.
fun. But there is
I
a
actually love
line.
that.
I know, you've got to go to this place. The whole time I was thinking, Joe needs to be here. But there is, because as you can imagine, it's quite popular. There's a line out the door. So when we were visiting, it was pouring rain. Our little overnight in New York, it was a washout. Both days, pouring rain, which was not ideal. But that's okay. We didn't let it rain on our parade. We sang and danced with our umbrellas in the streets. But while we were waiting,
there were literally 2 songs that popped into my head just now. I'm not. Stop me. What is happening?
Singing in the rain.
That was one of them. And the other one was, you can stand under my umbrella. Ella.
Yes, I think I sang both of those while we were there in the streets.
Amazing. We got each other.
We do. So we're standing in the line at Ellen's Stardust Diner, and this family comes up behind us. It was 2 little girls, twins, and their mom and their grandma that were there for spring break. Very adorable. And they were behind us in the line, and they had jackets on, but no umbrellas. And it was just raining. And so I realized that the grandmother she had a nice jacket, but still she was standing in the rain. It doesn't protect your face. I was like, well, this cannot fly. I had a giant golf umbrella. So I could hear their accents too. And I knew, maybe I was a little biased because I could hear the Southern accent. I knew that it sounded very similar.
It's my people.
It was my people. I knew that it sounded similar to where I grew up. So I said, excuse me, I have room under my umbrella. Why don't you stand under here with me?
You can literally stand under my umbrella, Ella.
Yes.
Oh, so sweet.
And she did. So we started chatting. Truth is, they were from like 2 hours or so away from where I grew up.
Oh.
So we chatted in line, and we were in this line for like an hour. And once or twice, they would come down the line and say, any tables of 2. And those people would get pulled out of the line and get to go in. Because there's no reservations. You kind of have to do it by what opens up. So we had been in this line for a long time. And suddenly the woman comes down and she's like, table of 7 or 8, large party, table of 7 or 8. And instantly the mom that was with that little family was like, we kind of looked at each other and we're all doing the math in our head. And she's like, 7, we have 7. And I was like, yes, we have 7. And so we just joined up with these strangers that we did not even know in the line. And we were like, yes, take us. And we went and we sat together. So we had 4 kids. We had my older 2 kids, the twins, and then me and this mom and grandma. And we just had the most lovely time. And we probably saved ourselves at least 30 minutes of standing in the rain.
I mean, this is the most heartwarming story. Please tell me y'all are internet friends now.
It was a perfect little meet cute, and I did tell her about the podcast because I said, you know what? I have got to tell Joe about this, so I have this podcast. Is it okay if I mention you? So shout out to Jennifer and Pam, that's mom and the grandma down in Georgia, Gainesville, Georgia, I believe.
My family's in Gainesville.
Are they really?
Yes, I have family in Gainesville, Georgia. Yes, I do.
Oh my gosh. Well,
love it.
We
love it.
Had a lovely time, and it totally made our time at Ellen's Stardust Diner all the more fun. When you're with other people, it's more fun. Loved it.
100%. This story has brought me so much joy. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you, Jennifer and Pam, for giving us something really lovely to talk about.
It was so cute. The last thing I just remembered, the little girl, when I told him I had the podcast, one of the little twins said, does that mean you're famous?
Oh.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, honey. I am not famous, but I do have a podcast.
We have a little baby corner of the internet, and we are so proud of it. We are so proud of it. But I love the kind of starry-eyed, perception of children They're just so sweet and so lovely. And fame is whatever they make it. And I like
It's
that.
true. It's true. Well, maybe we should jump in the meat of today's episode.
Yeah, I think we should because today is very exciting for me because I get to interview you. And that is fun. So, I think we should just dive into it. First of all, why don't you tell everybody where you went, how long you were there, and kind of what the purpose of that trip was?
Yes. So, for my husband works at a university. So, he
Hmm.
is around a college schedule. So, we have to
Yes.
kind of make choices about his spring break, our kids' spring break, my spring break, because I also work at a university, but I teach nursing students at a community college. So, we decided for his spring break, our kids also had a day off. We were going to take advantage of that little window and take a quick trip out to Southern California.
That is a bold choice to go all the way across the country for a quick trip, but you really made the most of it.
We really did. So we had five, I'll call it five, I'm sorry, six. So we flew there, we left around lunchtime and we flew across the country because we're East Coast all the way to LAX is where we flew into. And then we
Wow.
had 4 solid days in Southern California, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we flew back on the day after that. So
Mm.
I was worried about the itinerary. I was like, man, we are packing a lot in. It ended up being perfect and the perfect little tour of Southern California.
That makes me so happy. Watching your stories from this trip, there were places that I had heard of, but had actually never bothered to visually look up. And I just, every time I saw something new, I was like, stop it. Like, are you in Hawaii right now? What is going on? It doesn't even matter that you canceled your trip to Hawaii because this looks the same, but also
Yeah,
way cheaper to get to.
way cheaper. So our flights were really not bad at all. When you consider we were going from the East Coast, we used all points and we
Hmm.
have 2 companion passes still. So it was out of pocket $56 for our family of 5 to go round trip to California. And
Yes.
then even the flights I made sure to get kind of at their lowest possible point value. So our flight to LAX was 11,814 points, and we had to buy 3 tickets and then 2 kids on the companion pass, which
Yeah.
11,800 is
So
a steal.
good. So good. What the ticket home from Salt Lake City was literally like 33,000. One person,
Yeah.
one way, not nonstop. So this absolutely a steal.
Yeah, on the way back, we came from San Diego. So we flew into
Mm.
LAX, but then our grand tour of Southern California took us down to San Diego, and they were a little more expensive on the way back, but they were 15,751 and that is also direct.
That is incredible. That's incredible. Points and miles, ugh, such a cool thing. But something happened to you on the plane. And I want you
Oh
to
my.
tell everybody about this story. And I haven't even heard the full story. I just got a text while you were on the plane. So I don't really know the extent of what happened, but I need to know right now.
Oh my gosh. So we're sitting on the plane. I've got the kids plugged into their electronics. My husband's even plugged in. So this whole thing I'm about to tell you, he had no clue. Didn't even phase him. He didn't see it. He was not aware of any of it. But I did not have electronics because I had given up some of mine to the toddler.
Oh, painful.
Always. We always think we have enough, and then somehow we're short earphones or something, and I have to give up my phone, my electronics to the toddler
No.
for the sake of world peace. But over the loudspeaker, I hear, if there are any nurses on board, please come forward. If there are any nurses on board, please come forward. And I start looking around. Oh my goodness. I'm a nurse. I'm a hospital nurse. I'm looking around like, am I the only one hearing this? Is someone else hearing this?
Oh
Is
my
it me?
gosh.
Am I supposed to go forward? What is happening? Because I am a hospital nurse, but there's no button to press where that says code blue and everyone else comes running to help me. So what am I going to do on this plane?
Oh my gosh.
but duty calls. So I look around for a second, then I'm like, all right, I guess I'm up. So I
Oh my
stand up
gosh.
and I move to the front of the plane. Thankfully, I think everybody on that plane who was a medical professional had that like 10-second pause of like looking around like, are we doing, or were we doing this? Are we doing this? And then a couple other people also stood up. Thankfully, there was a doctor who seemed to jump into action. And so there were a couple of us that had moved forward. So they were like, all right, y'all guys, y'all can go back to your seats. So I go
Hmm.
back to my seat, but I'm watching because I'm like, what's happening? Am I
Yeah.
going to need to go back up there? They have a flight attendant who puts on like a headset, which I need to talk to a flight attendant to figure out what really is going on. She was clearly like talking to someone. I don't know if she was talking to the pilots, to someone on the ground, like EMS. Is she on with 911? It was like like you called into a call center. She had the little microphone coming out of the
Wow.
headset. She was
That's
talking to
really
somebody.
interesting.
And the passenger gets laid out flat on the ground. I thought, here we go. Here, I had heard someone say he wasn't diabetic, so it wasn't a blood sugar issue. When I saw them laying out on the ground, I thought, all right, I got my CPR recertification last week. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's go. I
Yes,
was ready.
you
I was
did.
like jacked up at that point. Adrenaline was pumping, and I was ready to do some compressions. I thought, oh my gosh, we're landing too. We're going to be landing. In my mind, I'm just going through all these scenarios and thinking, I bet we're right over about Kansas City. I was thinking about you. I thought we're going to land here. There's going to be ambulances. I mean, it was quite
Oh.
the experience of things going on in my head. But thankfully, the passenger seemed to recover. There were no compressions done. I don't fully know what happened, but he seemed to be okay. But it just made me laugh so hard that all of this is happening. And I am like dialed into this. I'm texting Megan, my nurse friend. I'm texting her everything because she's got a Southwest companion pass too. She's a Southwest girl, and I was just texting her. I was like, Megan, look at this. This is what's happening. What do I need to do? Why do just going back and forth because nurses get all nursey and amped up. And my husband is just back there watching a movie. He has no idea any of this even happened. I was like, did you see me get up? Did you see me go up there? No clue. He's like, what?
Wow. Wow.
I don't know if it was the mom or the nurse fact. You know how moms are aware? Like, what's going on around you at all
Yes.
times. Like, you kind of
Amen.
key into these things. He was just oblivious to the whole thing. But it made for quite an interesting trip. Thankfully, the gentleman was okay. When we landed, they did ask everyone to stay seated while they got him off the plane first, probably to seek medical attention. But it
Yeah.
seemed like all was well. He walked off under his own ability. So, quite the
Okay.
eventful flight.
Gosh, I wonder what happened though. That's bizarre. I wonder if he passed out or something. Like,
I know. My heart goes out to him because I can't imagine how scary that is and up in the air. And
yes.
yeah, thankfully, it seemed like whoever this doctor was that was on board seemed very capable and
Mhm.
everything was okay. So, but it was interesting.
Oh my gosh, what a story. That one will go down in history as completely unforgettable.
Yeah, we will remember that flight. At least I will. Maybe
Well,
not my husband.
yeah. No, I don't think he will. What did he have a noise canceling headphones? How did he not hear the loudspeaker announcement?
I don't know. Who knows?
Amazing. Amazing. Let's refocus. I want to go back to we are now at LAX, right? And I assume
Yes,
we have rented a car. Yes? Tell me
we
about that
did.
process. Tell me who you used, what cards you used. I want the details.
We cannot wait for you to hear the rest of today's episode. But before we dive back in, we want to invite you to connect with us on Instagram. If you're enjoying the insights and travel tips we share here on the podcast, here's how you can stay even more connected with us.
First of all, follow us on our personal Instagram accounts for a glimpse into our daily lives and additional travel adventures. You can find Mary Ellen over at Family Travel for the Win with the number 4, and you can find me, Joe, at Points to Wonderland. Give us a follow and reach out to say hello and let us know if you found us from the podcast.
And of course, for all things podcast related, head over to our dedicated Instagram page at Wonderland on Points podcast to stay updated on upcoming episodes, behind the scenes moments, and maybe even some exclusive content. Plus, if you're a visual learner, check out our YouTube channel with the same name. We plan on launching full video episodes in the near future, and we would love for you all to join us over there.
Your support on these platforms means the absolute world to us, and it's a fantastic way to be part of the growing Wonderland on Points community. So grab your phone, hit that follow button, and let's learn how to travel on Points together. And now, back to the show.
I originally booked a car through my Venture X because that's kind of my go-to for car rentals. But at the last minute, and I did that months and months and months in advance. At the last minute, I redid a search because I realized that I made a silly mistake and shorted our trip a day. I was going to take it back the night before we actually went to the airport. I don't know what I was thinking originally. I had some plan or reason why I did that, and I changed my mind and decided that was foolish. So I had to rebook. But this time I actually looked through, my husband has Amex Platinum. And so I looked, and between his Amex Platinum and my Venture X, I compared the prices, and it was actually different. So I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. Well, you remember that was my experience with the Southwest portal and the Chase portal. All the same companies, all the same location, vastly different prices.
Well, this was all on the Hertz website. But if I was logged into his Hertz account where he has status through Amex Platinum and my Hertz account where I have status through Venture X, I guess they have different deals worked out with the different credit cards. Somehow
That's
it was
bizarre.
different.
That is
somehow it was
bizarre.
different.
Well, okay, but you found the best deal, I'm assuming. So no complaints here.
I found the best deal, and we went with the Hertz through the Amex Platinum. So it was fine. We turned it in to San Diego instead of LAX, which sometimes throws off the price a little bit too when you're not returning to the same place. But it really was relatively affordable. I didn't write down how much it cost, but it wasn't bad.
Did you get the President Circle, like the choose your own car, free upgrade, all that stuff?
We did get to choose our own car, which makes a lot of sense that Hertz does that.
I
It's
loved
so
that
much
on my last
quicker.
trip. Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just give you a
versus
paper, send you upstairs, pick whatever you want. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is a lot faster. So I am kind of on board with that. I still shop around for rental cars, and I'll still maybe take the lowest price, but something about that status with Hertz, it's a little more fun than I would have thought. I would never get a credit card solely for that perk, but I enjoyed using that perk.
Absolutely. Well, and I don't have status, but they just let me do it anyways the last time I got a Hertz car. So that was really lovely. And I have no idea why they let me do it, but no complaints about that either.
Yeah, I think they have two different lots. There's like a gold rewards lot that you can, at least at LAX, there were two different sections, but either way, they let people pick their own car, which is just faster and great.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's what it was. I think I was in the gold, not the President Circle. So I bet they're just a lower tier of cars. But my brother and I literally sat in 4 different cars before we decided which one we wanted to take. Nobody was up there. We were just trying them all out. It was really fun.
That's super cute. I think we just asked our kids, which one do you want to go with? My son is a NASCAR guy, and his favorite drivers are Ford people. So we went with some little Ford SUV. I don't even know what it was.
Love it. That's so cute. I bet that was a very fun experience for him. Okay, so let's dig into your itinerary. Give us an overview of your days and what your plans were.
Okay, so like I said, we had 4 full days in California. And we like 2 kinds of things. We love national parks, and we also like amusement parks, although at a lesser love, but we like them. So we were like, okay, 4 days. Day 1, Channel Islands National Park. Day 2, Hollywood Studios for Super Mario World, because we have big Nintendo fans in our house.
Yes.
Day 3, Joshua Tree National Park. So we're hitting 2 national parks. And then day 4, San Diego Zoo, because the toddler has a love for animals that we could not deny her with going
I
to such
love that.
I know, it's a world-renowned zoo, so we thought,
Hmm.
we've got to do that.
Yes,
So those were our
absolutely.
4 days.
Is there anything that you wish you'd allotted more time to through those 4 days? Was there anything that you were like, this was not enough? Or did you really feel like one solid day in each place is great? You get to see everything, do everything. You don't leave like wanting more.
I honestly felt like we nailed it. It
Nice.
I was shocked. I thought to the Joshua Tree day, I thought was going to be the one that was thrown off because we had a lot of driving that day. So we left our hotel for Hollywood Studios was the Hyatt Place Glendale, and we left that and drove to Joshua Tree. So it takes about 2.5 hours to get to Joshua Tree. I think it was 2.5 hours from the Hyatt Place Glendale. And then we enjoyed Joshua Tree. And then we, instead of going back to Glendale, we went down to San Diego to the Manchester Grand Hyatt. And that also was several hours of driving, maybe even 3. It was a lot of driving for one day, but honestly, that's what I was worried about. And that's what maybe someone would want to stretch out into one more night. But it didn't seem bad because the drive itself is gorgeous, especially
Oh,
coming from the East Coast. It's a different scene than we're used to. And it flew by. It did not even seem like we were driving that much. And we walked around. Obviously, we were hiking in Joshua Tree. So we got enough physical activity during the day that honestly, it worked out.
that sounds amazing. Actually, this is just a tiny tangent, I swear, but I was talking to my boss about our last episode, the national parks, and she's been to all of those national parks in Utah. And she was saying her recommendation fly into Denver and do that drive to Moab. She said it is the most stunning. You take Highway 70 through the Rockies, and she said it's just like an incredible drive. So that's just what that made me think of. It's like sometimes don't think of a drive as a chore, but as an additional adventurous part of your travels.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And that's how that turned out. So, anyway, but let's dial back to the first day.
Yes, I want to know all about Channel Islands. I mean, it just those videos. That's the one that I was talking about. That looks like it was Hawaii. I mean, unreal. And you
Yeah.
saw sea creatures, my favorite sea creatures.
It's hilarious that you say sea creatures. One time, and my daughter gives us the most epic quotes because she's so dramatic sometimes. And one time we were on a vacation and we were deciding what activity to do, and we had to choose. And one of the choices was the aquarium. And my son did not vote for the aquarium. And my daughter, I can't remember how old she was at the time, maybe like 6, she just exclaimed, "Why are you always against the sea creatures?" Like it was the most random. We were like, the sea creatures. It was very
that
cute, but I
that
don't
quote
often hear
will
people refer to them as sea creatures.
Well, honestly, I just wanted to let you be able to share which sea creatures with our audience, but now that quote will live in infamy in my mind forever.
Yes, my son Monty is always against the sea creatures. Except for not really. He very much enjoys the sea creatures. But so on the way to Channel Islands, you have to take a ferry because it is, in fact, an island off the coast of Southern California. So you
Uh-oh.
ride a ferry. Yes, it wasn't as bad as the ferry in Puerto Rico. We
Okay.
survived. I still took precautions. We still took some meds, had some patches, but we very much survived. It was not the same. But on the way there, I had no idea that it was like a whale watching excursion and a dolphin excursion. There were all these sea creatures, and we got to see them
Sea
all. Like,
creatures.
it was amazing. The dolphins were like swimming besides our boat and jumping, and they
I
were
know.
just hot dogging it.
The videos made me so happy. How much was that ferry?
See, I knew you were going to ask me this. It's like the one
Well,
thing I didn't look up.
I like to know the prices. I like to get into the nitty gritty.
Well, it's your only choice. So if you want to go to Channel Islands, unless you want to rent like a private boat, this ferry through Island Packers is the only option. And it just bills itself as a ferry to Channel Islands. They do have separate, I think, nature excursion tours that you can go on, but we just booked the ferry. Like, it is not meant to be a whale watching excursion, but depending on the time of year you go, and we went in March. And so it was during the whale migration, and so there were just tons of whales, and they do a good job of if they see a whale, they will stop the boat, turn the boat around, kind of point it out to you, give you time to look at it and enjoy it before they move on. So they're not going to spend all day out there. It's not a whale watching excursion, but they do their best to make sure you see something.
That is incredible. Which island did you go to? I'm trying to
Santa
look it up real
Cruz
quick.
Island.
Okay, so that's the top one here. So a day fare round trip, adult, which is 13 and up, $66. Does that sound right? Child, 47, infant under 30.
Yeah, that sounds right. Because I was thinking it was around 200 and something dollars total that we spent on the ferry. Again, you don't really have a choice. If you want to go to
Right.
Channel Islands, that's the cost. But yeah, the toddler was free, so that's always good.
I just think it's good. I think it's good to have the cost, but I also think in terms of what you experience, to go on a actual whale watching excursion can oftentimes be $100 plus a person. In Maine, I saw it for like $250 a person. So I just have to say, what an extraordinary experience at an extraordinary price.
Yeah, and we saw them both directions. We saw humpback whales and some other kind of whale. I feel bad that I don't know the proper sea creature to name, but we saw them both directions, and we saw dolphins both directions. And I think we hit it on a great day. But I will say that I learned, not just for the whale migration, but I do think the springtime, March, April, May, beginning of June, is a great time to go to Channel Islands National Park, because I was speaking to one of the volunteers that works at the park, and it was so lush and green. You mentioned it seemed like Hawaii, and I definitely got that feeling while I was there. Like, it was just so the mountains and the cliffs and the rolling green, all of it. I felt half like I was in Ireland or somewhere, half like I was in Hawaii.
Oh,
But he said it's not like that year round. So the
okay.
greenness is there for about 4 or 5 months in the springtime to early summer, and then it turns brown, which I'm sure it
Okay.
still
Okay.
has amazing qualities, but that lush green feel that you noticed and I noticed, it's best to go in the springtime.
Very good tip. Was it crowded?
It's not for a national park standard, because the only way to get there is on that Island Packers ferry. And there's
Mhm.
only a couple ferries in the morning and a couple ferries in the afternoon. So there's a max number of people really that can be there. And it doesn't feel crowded at all.
Oh, that is amazing. Maybe should you tell the people how Channel Islands works? Like there's multiple islands and you pick one, or do you hop from island to island? Kind of explain that a little bit.
Yeah, I think you need to pick one per day. So we were there was a group of travelers, older travelers with a program called Road Scholars, not like the scholarship, but road like ROAD. And it is a group
Love.
for, I think I don't know if you need to be over a certain age, but seniors who like to travel together. And so they were there, and they were
Aw,
telling me that, yeah, they were precious, and we sat with them on the boat and we had a great time. We make friends apparently everywhere we go.
that's
But they
amazing.
told us they went to one of the other islands the day before. So I think you
Mm,
kind of need to pick. But Santa Cruz Island, I think, is the big main one, I'll say, maybe, that people go to. And we definitely feel like we got the whole experience by going there.
okay, perfect. Good to know. I think there's a little story that you need to tell about hiking
Oh
this
my
island.
good grief. Okay. So first of all, let's put some truth to this trip, okay? everything is not what it seems on Instagram. It
Uh-huh.
it was a magical trip. 100% magical. However, it almost went horrifically wrong on many occasions. From the start, my son was coming fresh off the flu. So, a couple days before our trip, he got diagnosed with the flu, had to miss school. I wasn't thinking he was going to miss the whole week of school. Turns out he did because he had the flu. He was fever free before we left, but I, being the hospital nurse that I am, made him wear a mask in our house for 2 days, droplet precautions. I was like, look, son, I love you. I don't have time for us all to get the flu. Okay. We
No.
are supposed to fly to California this week. We don't have time to get the flu. I know. Stay away from me. I was not the most like loving, tender, supportive care mom. I was like, put your mask on. Stay away. Stay away. I cared for him, but, took precautions. So we
Mhm.
barely made it. I made him wear a mask on the airplane, just precautionary. He was good to go at that point, but still he wore a mask on the plane so as not to spread his flu-ness to anyone else.
Very
But
kind.
we got to Channel Islands and we start going on our hike. My husband has all these hikes planned around the island for the day. We get to like the summit of the very first one, and my daughter throws up everywhere. And now we're in the middle of a national park, okay? There's a lot of nature around. There's a lot of space to throw up. She throws up on my book bag. On my book bag. Thank goodness we had a toddler, so I had at least some baby wipes
Oh
because we
my
had
gosh.
hardly anything to clean it up with. And I was like, I have to wear this book bag for the rest of our trip. I'm not at home. I can't just do laundry easily. Like, you could have thrown up off the side of this cliff if you wanted to, but you chose my book bag.
I know all this grass, all this
Oh,
ground. Oh, poor baby though. Throwing up, especially suddenly. What an awful feeling.
I know. And she gets motion sick. So the big question was, okay, is this
Is
from the
she
ferry
sick?
or
Uh-huh.
is this a stomach bug? Because
Yeah.
my son with the flu, he didn't have any kind of stomach stuff at all.
Right.
At all. It was more like a head cold kind of thing.
Yeah, which is what the
So,
flu actually is. I feel like people
right.
still think that the flu is the stomach bug because for some reason when we were kids, that's what people called the
It,
flu,
it's
but
true.
that is
Yeah.
not accurate.
Yeah.
So you're like, is this a second illness infiltrating our family?
Oh my gosh. Though, all I wanted was these 4 days in Southern California. And now we're coming off the flu and we have this mysterious vomiting episode. So I send my husband and son and toddler off on the rest of the hikes. And I hike back down with the sick child. I was like, I'm just going to go let her sit down at the bottom and there's some picnic tables. She can rest. And we'll see what happens. And I'm like, either we're
Oh,
going to start dropping like flies, or it was just the boat that she now has to get back on to
oh,
ride back to the land.
baby.
But it's funny because on the way down, again, I see a woman and a man. The woman is laid out on the ground in the recovery position. If you've ever taken a CPR class, they tell
I
you,
have.
put people in the recovery position. And
Yes.
I thought, oh my gosh, this is less than 24 hours after the plane episode.
What is
Here we
happening?
go again. I see a woman laid out. I'm about to ready to jump into action. I'm like, I got to care for this vomiting child, but I can also help you if I need to. So it was a little bit of an adventure, but Channel Islands is absolutely stunning. Highly recommend it. It definitely flew up my list of national parks. Even though I didn't get to enjoy it quite as thoroughly as my husband and son, I would so recommend it for anyone, especially if you might see the whales and the dolphins. There's a bird that lives there that it's the only place, it's endemic to the
Oh,
island. It's
oh,
like the only place
wow.
in the world that you can see this bird. And they also have this little island fox that we got to see. And we saw both the fox and the bird, which
Oh
are
my gosh.
really cool.
I love foxes.
Yeah, so put it on your list. Put it on your list. And that
Oh,
night,
it's on
I
my
don't
list.
want, yeah, it's got to be. I don't want to leave this out. We stayed, for anyone who wants to plan this trip, at the Hyatt Regency Westlake. And that is a property that with the Hyatt changes from the spring.
Mm,
It did change hotel categories. When we
boo.
stayed there, I know, boo. it was 12,000 points a night. So we just stayed one night there. When we got back from Channel Islands, we drove to the Hyatt Place Glendale, and that's where we stayed for our Universal days. And we stayed 2 nights at Glendale for 15,000 points per night.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's move on to day 2 then. And also, maybe don't leave us on the edge of our seats. Was there any more vomiting?
Oh, dear goodness. I know. This is what people come to the podcast for, to hear about.
I mean, I take care of kids. You take care of sick people. I believe that vomit is just like so ingrained in our day. How could we not talk about it?
So, yeah, the big question, was it a stomach bug or was it motion sickness? Well, the night before we were going to Universal Studios, about 3 a.m.,
oh no,
down I went. I
oh.
thankfully chose to throw up in the toilet instead of anywhere else, but I was like, okay, great. So the day before going to an amusement park, the night before, I am throwing up. Not ideal. But I will tell you that after I had that episode, I actually woke up feeling fine. Like, it passed.
Those 24-hour things where it's just like one and done are so bizarre because you feel so bad and then you feel so good.
Yeah, it was just like over, flipped a switch. Super thankful for that. And I am not much of a rides person. My job at Universal Studios was going to be take care of the toddler and wheel her around in a stroller while the big kids and dad actually enjoyed a lot of the rides. So it was fine. I was walking around a theme park, but I wasn't like trying to do roller coasters or anything. I just used lots of hand sanitizer and kind of relaxed. But we went to Universal Studios for the most adorable park.
Tell me.
Have you heard about it?
Oh, I have. So actually, tell the listeners.
They have now a Super Mario World at Universal Hollywood. So the first one was built in Japan, and now the second one is in Universal Studios Hollywood. I do believe the plan is to have one in Orlando eventually. I don't know what the timeline for that is.
I believe it's part of the new Universal Epic Park that's going to be opening up, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but that is happening.
That was our main pull there. They do have the Harry Potter stuff, and I honestly felt a little bad that I am not as big of a Harry Potter person as you, and so I did take a little picture of it, but our draw was definitely the Nintendo Super Mario stuff. And few tips for people that want to do this. It is absolutely worth it to buy the early entry. It's $30 a person, which after you've already spent money on Universal tickets is kind of hard to stomach.
Yes.
Along with other things.
Yes.
But it is so worth it because I paid good attention to when the park opened, and we got they were able to do the fun Bowser ride that's like the big thing without any wait. They just came right in, walked on that, were able to do that. We were able to get reservations at the Toadstool Cafe, which is very popular, but all of the reservations, you can only get them once you're in the park. You scan a little QR code, and those are gone. By the time the park actually opens, it's impossible to get those reservations. So if you want to get the full Super Mario experience, I highly recommend you got to spring for the early entry. You just really do.
I got to look into that for our Universal trip to Orlando. I haven't seen any option to buy early entry. I keep seeing if you stay at a resort, a Universal resort, you get early entry, which obviously we're not doing. We're staying at a Hyatt Place. So I want to look into that because since I paid for our tickets on points, I would kind of be willing to pay $30 for both of us to get in early, at least one of our days. I think that would be kind of fun.
At Nintendo World, you could just see, like we were standing in a very short line for one of the activities when the park fully opened and the
Mhm.
flood of people that came in, it was a
Wow.
world of difference. There's people when it's early entry. There's a fair amount of people, but if you see my videos, you might think, "Oh my gosh, how are you having these videos that seem like there's no one there? It seems like the park is empty." But it's because it really was such a dramatic difference between once the
Wow.
regular gates opened.
Okay, that's a very good tip. Very good tip. Honestly, I grew up not playing video games because we weren't allowed to and didn't have a system. So I have zero connection to Nintendo, to Mario, to any of it. I, like it looked so cute, but I'm like, I don't know what any of this stuff is. So, and then you're like the same way with Harry Potter. Meanwhile, I would just be standing there with my jaw on the floor, probably wearing a robe and holding a wand. So, yeah, wait for content from June, people. It's coming. It's coming. But I'm so happy you liked it. I'm sure your kids were probably thrilled. Absolutely thrilled.
Yeah, they will. But I will say my husband, because he did grow up a true
Oh,
Mario fanatic, Nintendo fan. So he also was just over the moon, like giddy like a little kid. Like he truly loved
that's
it.
so cute. I love
Yeah,
that.
I'm always happy at theme parks just to kind of almost like Christmas morning when as a mom you just kind of sit back and take it all in. You just want to see them open all the presents and have fun. At theme park, I'm the same way. I don't actually need to ride much. I'm happy to just see that they're so excited.
Oh, I love that. That's such a nice way to look at it. I cannot say I'm that magnanimous. I'm like, get me on these rides. If I paid for it, I want to try it all, except spinning rides. Can't do spinning rides because I
Oh,
too
absolutely not.
have horrible motion sickness. You would never catch me on the Disney teacups ever. Day 3, you went to Joshua Tree. So we are leaving that Hyatt. The
Hyatt Place Glendale.
So we are leaving the Hyatt Place Glendale and we are driving to Joshua Tree. So you talked a little bit about that drive already. It was long, but it was beautiful, which sounds lovely. Is it a coastal drive, or I guess I don't actually know the geography of California at all.
I think
At all.
that's the same boat we were in. So you see mountains all around you. And I don't think I thought Southern California, it's because we're just naive and we haven't grown up on the West Coast. But in my
Yes.
mind, I didn't imagine mountains, but there's like mountains all around you while you're driving. And then you kind of go up and over a mountain range to get to Joshua Tree.
Oh wow.
So yeah, it's gorgeous.
Okay.
There's these giant wind turbines, which are a little bit of an eyesore, but also kind of cool. So my son was fascinated with them.
I just stayed in an Airbnb I don't know, a month and a half ago for Dane's birthday when we went away. That was across from a field of the giant white wind turbines. And at night, all you could see is the red dot in the center of each of them going back as far as the eye could see. And it was terrifying. It looked like a field of robots. The apocalypse had come. And even really, the big giant field of the turbines was a little freaky looking. I mean, you could see no end to them for miles and miles and miles. And when you walked up close to them, because you could walk around, I mean, they're so big. They don't really look that big, but I don't know. They kind of freak me out, I have to be honest. But, anyways, I'm not sure how I would feel about those mixed in with the mountains, but I'm glad that it brought some enjoyment to the small ones. That's always
Yeah,
good.
we don't have those. I can't really think of many places, if any, on the East Coast that we really have those. So they're
Mm.
very I've seen them before in other places. I think flying into Amsterdam, like I've certainly seen them before, but I don't know that my son has because they're not around where we are much. So
Definitely a cool
anyway,
thing to see for the first time, I think. Yes. Okay, so we're at Joshua Tree now. Give us your best tips and walk us through the experience.
yeah, so I highly recommend. My husband had researched this a little bit, which I really appreciate that he did. And he figured out that going in through the north entrance can sometimes have a shorter line. The kind of main normal entrance that people use their cars can get really backed up, and you actually can wait for 45 minutes just to get into Joshua Tree National Park.
Wow.
Yeah, so we were not really interested in that. So we went around through the north entrance, and we did almost kind of like, it's a loop almost that you do in the park. And so we did the reverse, I think, than most people do. And we did not have to wait in a very long line at all to get in the park, even getting in the park later than we wanted to. Like, you want to go as early as you can to national parks usually, because then there's
Mhm.
less people. But because we had to drive from Hyatt Place Glendale and it took a couple hours, we didn't actually get in the park till about 10:30 in the morning, which is later than we would have liked.
Right, but still, what a tip to go around to the north side. That's amazing. How
Yeah.
long does it take? Like from the regular entrance to the north entrance? How many minutes you think?
Oh, not much, like 20 minutes or something.
Oh, worth it. I'd rather drive
And
for
we
20
would
minutes than sit in a line for 20 minutes or
And we
longer.
would have driven that 20 minutes one way or the other because, again, we were
Mm,
making kind of a circle. So it
yeah.
really didn't matter. It's just a matter of which way you went around the circle. So we went in through the north entrance, and our very first hike ended up being probably our favorite hike, and that was Arch Rock Trail.
Ooh,
And it's all of these amazing giant boulders that you can just scramble and like climb up all the boulders. And so my
love
kids,
that.
oh my gosh, they just had a field day with it. My son would have stayed there literally all day. All
I
day.
love it. It sounds amazing. It's
It
not
did
so
make me
fun when you're not allowed to climb on anything. Like, that's real magic for childhood.
Yes, yes, I totally agree. Like, you could just climb on whatever you wanted. There are people go, I mean, that's one of the main draws of Joshua Tree, for it's a destination for climbers. I mean, they can
Mm,
do, belaying and climbing with ropes, but also they can do all the rock scrambling and bouldering without any kind of ropes and that kind of thing. So that's one of the main draws of the park. And my kids definitely were all about it. I did learn a couple tips that I will pass along.
share them.
Make sure you have good footwear for climbing. So you want your kids to have shoes that have good grip on them, because they're going to want to be scrambling all around. And then this is kind of a little much coming from the nurse, but I am not a mom that travels with a first aid kit at all times. Some moms, they have in the car, they have the full set of Band-Aids of all different sizes and a cold pack and all the things. I have just never been that mom. I love you if you're that mom. I want to be
Me
your
too.
friend,
Me
because I'm going
too.
to need to borrow your Band-Aids
It's also
when,
not me.
yeah. Not me. It's not for the ADHDers out of the world.
I don't believe in
It's not
Band-Aids.
in.
Rub some dirt in it.
Yeah. So I did not have a first aid kit, and that would have been nice, because with the rock scrambling does come some
Uh-oh.
scraped knees and elbows here and there. But again, my kids, they're kind of used to me by now, so they just go on with life. But it would have been
Mm,
nice. So if you plan to go there, I would have a first aid kit if I went back.
perfect. Well, tell us about the other hikes you did, and then also tell me about this frequent temperature changing. I've never heard of such a thing. Like, you're saying
Yeah,
it changes a lot during the day?
yeah, I don't know if it's because of the elevation, but also being a desert and the wind. Like, there's so many elements, I guess, to it. But there were times in Joshua Tree that we were legitimately cold. Like, oh my gosh, this is so cold. Let me put on my hoodie. And then a few minutes later, we were like, oh my gosh, now I'm hot. And we're taking off our hoodie. Like, we just kept going back and forth for being chilly to being hot to being chilly to being hot. I don't think that's a problem if you go in maybe the summer and other times a
Right.
year. But for the spring, definitely. And there's so many different elevation changes, because remember I said
Yeah.
it's near mountains. So one point we went up to the Keys View, which is this stunning view where you can see almost to the border of Mexico. You can see just
Oh,
so far. It's gorgeous, but it's very cold and windy, at least in the spring. When we were there in March, that was very cold. But then when you're hiking
okay.
and you're down in the valley, then you're hot again,
Right. Oh my gosh, that would drive me nuts. I'd be like, is this menopause? I don't know.
Am I having hot flashes?
Ah,
There were all these signs there too that told you to make sure you have lots of electrolyte drinks. I guess people can get very dehydrated quickly when they're there, probably especially in the summertime. But even the signs for like tips for winter in Joshua Tree mentioned making sure you had lots of electrolyte drinks. So keep that in mind
interesting.
if you plan a trip.
Okay. So Arch Rock Trail was your favorite hike, and you went up to Keys View. What is the trail called that gets you up there? Or are there multiple options?
So that one is just like a parking lot, and then you just walk up a very short path. So that one's not much of a hike.
Oh, okay. Did you do any other hikes while you were there?
We did. So we did the Hidden Valley Trail, which is very popular. It's beautiful, though. Highly recommend it as well. And the Barker Dam Trail. So we did 3 trails all together during
Wow.
our day there. Yeah, my
How
husband,
long?
he thought he was so smooth. He thought he was so smooth. When we were on that Barker Dam Trail, that's the 3rd one that we did. Near the end of it, he pops up with, "So, guys, kids, you didn't realize that you have hiked like 6 miles today because I broke it up into these little like 1.5 mile hikes, 1.5 mile here, 1.5 miles here." He was just so proud of himself that he broke it into 3 little mini hikes that they wouldn't realize that really they hiked 6 miles. And we were like, yeah, no, we got that. We
We
knew that
feel
we
it.
walked 6 miles. Yeah.
We feel it in our bones. Okay.
But
That's
it
funny.
is nice that for kids, there are so many great short hikes. So you can choose what your kids are capable of. And I do think that the Arch Rock and Hidden Valley Trail gave lots of opportunities for climbing on rocks and exploring, that when they're doing those kind of things, they lose track of that they're walking because they're just having so much fun exploring.
Yeah, it really is a good move to break it down into a bunch of smaller hikes. There's something about this feeling when you're on a 6 mile hike of like, okay, when is this over? Versus when you feel that you've completed something, it's like you get a new burst of energy to start again and see something new. And I don't know. I mean, I think it's funny, but I also think like maybe a little genius, but we won't tell him. We'll just keep it here on the pod.
Let him feel proud of himself. I will
Yes.
say, I'll bring up a tip from Mariah that she mentioned a couple weeks ago on the pod that she learned from Cam, actually, at our family passport, about buying. If you do go on a national park trip this summer, maybe you're planning something in the next year, don't forget you can use a shopping portal to buy your America the Beautiful pass through LL Bean. I thought that was
Yes.
just such a fun tip because we have
So
had
fun.
America the Beautiful passes. And if you have a 4th grader, which of course this year we don't, we have a 3rd and a 5th grader. So we're kind of straddling the line for this year. But you can have a free America the Beautiful pass. So either buy it through a shopping portal with LL Bean or maybe get your 4th grader pass.
Discrimination against all non fourth graders. Just saying. Just saying. Okay, so Joshua Tree, first of all, how long were you there? Like, how many hours did all those hikes take?
I think we got there about 10:30 in the morning, and then we left Joshua Tree maybe about 5 p.m. or so.
And
It
was
was around dinner time. And so we had dinner when we came out of the park. We were worried because we had listened to actually a podcast about Joshua Tree before we went to kind of gear us up, help us to know what to expect. And they acted like there were no food options, and which I found to be completely untrue. So
weird.
I guess the podcast I was listening to, maybe she didn't have the same taste in food as us. But we found a Firehouse Subs. There was a Chipotle. There were a lot of
Perfect.
options. Yeah, a Sonic. We went and got
Oh, yeah.
slushes at the Sonic. And
Cute.
those are about 25 minutes from when you leave Joshua Tree. It takes maybe about 25 minutes to get there, but there were a ton of food options.
Oh, great. And was this the point that you drove straight to San Diego, or did you stay somewhere there for a night and then drive to San Diego?
No, so we drove to San Diego. We got dinner when we left the park, and then we drove however many 2 to 3 hours down to San Diego to the Manchester Grand Hyatt. So we got
Was
there
it
in the evening.
was it gorgeous?
It was grand. Oh my
Yay!
goodness. The Grand Hyatt is grand for a reason.
Wow. I mean, we've been talking about it for a little while because you were pretty excited when you booked it. And we asked at least one of our guests if anyone had stayed there, and no one had. We've never gotten any like first person accounts. So I wasn't totally sure how it was going to be, but oh, sounds amazing.
It
And how
was so
much,
big.
how many points per night?
When I booked it, it was before the hotel changed categories. I
Oh,
know. I
sad.
know. Rest in peace, the lower category. It was 15,000 points per night. It was the same as the Hyatt Place in Glendale. Both of those were 15,000 points per night.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it was a
crazy.
steal. I can
Yeah.
I can understand why they changed categories because at 15,000 points per night, I did feel like it was a steal. And my kids, they're so used, sweet things. They're so used to just the Hyatt Place or the Hyatt House because again, free breakfast is our love
Yeah.
language when you're
Yes,
traveling
yes.
with kids. More
Amen.
often than not, I try to stay at one of the lower end Hyatts because they have breakfast. But
Yeah.
so for them, they have never stayed in a hotel, I don't think this like big and grand. They were like, oh,
Oh my
so
gosh.
fancy.
Sweet angels. That's so fun. Did you eat food there or did you venture out to find food options? Oh, I guess
Yeah,
you
we
ate
didn't.
dinner on your way and then I guess did you check out in the morning and go to the zoo or how did your next day work?
We stayed 2 nights at the Grand Hyatt, Manchester
Okay.
Grand Hyatt. So we did not get breakfast. They don't have breakfast there unless you're globalist with Hyatt. Then you can have the free
Mm.
breakfast, and then or you can pay for breakfast. But we are not
Yeah,
going to
like
pay for a
$50 a
yeah.
person.
It's a hard
No.
pass.
Yeah,
We're not paying for breakfast because I'm not globalist. So we got breakfast at a McDonald's on the way to the zoo.
I love you guys.
We're very fancy. So day 4, we went to the zoo, and this was supposed to be the toddler's day because the whole time we were at Universal, my husband kept telling the big kids, okay, poor little baby, she doesn't get to do much of anything here. There were a couple little things she could do, but she kind of put up with a lot going to that amusement park all day where she really couldn't.
Sweetie.
Yeah, so he was like, when we go to the zoo, that is her day. Whatever animal she wants to see, that's the animal we're going to go see.
I love that.
Yeah, that
Was it
zoo, that
incredible?
yeah, you hear it's so famous. It's like
Yeah.
world famous,
Oh,
the
yeah.
San Diego Zoo. What I didn't know, and the animals were fantastic. Obviously, that's why you go for the animals, but it's also like a world famous botanical garden. It's just
Oh.
beautiful.
Oh.
When you're walking around all throughout the zoo, while the kids are looking at the animals, I'm like busy taking pictures of the trees and the bushes and the flowers. Like it was just really gorgeous. So I think that probably adds into the grandeur of that zoo is just that it's
Yeah.
such a beautiful environment.
Yes. I mean, of course, heard of the San Diego Zoo, and I've even been to San Diego. Being from St. Louis and having another well known zoo, but a free zoo, it's very hard for me to stomach the cost of a non free zoo. Sounds like it's probably worth the cost. I think last I heard it was like $50 for an adult. I don't know if it's more than that now.
It
Was it?
was painful. I
Yeah.
also live near a free zoo, and so I you're right. I that was flashing in my mind. I was like, "Okay, we could also take her to the free zoo."
Yes.
So, this is a lot, but when you're an East Coaster and you're in San Diego and it's world famous, you're just kind of like, "I'm glad I didn't pay anything for the hotels. I'm glad I
Yes.
didn't pay much for the plane
Yes.
tickets
Yes.
because it wasn't cheap. It still was not a cheap trip. It was very travel hacked in that our airfare was points and our
Yeah.
hotels were points, but you still have to budget for trips and you still have to
Absolutely.
plan that the activities are going to cost a lot. So it is not a cheap zoo, but it's a great zoo and we
Yes,
enjoyed
it's
it.
worth it. Okay, I love that. Any highlights from the zoo?
There's a double-decker bus that you can ride around the zoo
Ooh,
on. Yeah, which is kind of fun. And we did that first thing when we got there so that we could get an overview of everything. And we even saw some animals from the bus. And then we
Yeah,
didn't necessarily feel like maybe we needed to go back to that animal afterwards.
that's awesome.
So I think it was a good place to start with the zoo. The zoo has a really cool, like, sky rider thing that you can get on, kind of like a ski lift or something. I forget what they call it, and it will take you.
Sky tram, maybe?
Yeah, it'll
Fun.
take you to the other side of the zoo. Unfortunately, the day that we were there, it was very windy, and so they did not have that
Oh,
running. I must say, I was
sad.
super disappointed in that, because to me, that's the kind of ride I like. Is
Yeah.
it's not moving too fast, it's not going to make you motion sick, but you get to go, flying over the zoo and see everything. So,
Yeah, that's very unique too. That's a bummer to miss that.
yeah,
Is
I
that
was quite
included
disappointed.
in the cost?
It is included. It's
Okay.
meant to be something that's helpful because it's such a large zoo that
Yeah.
can help you get from one side of it to the other, and then you can kind of walk back through the zoo to the front. So
Ah,
it did mean that we did a little extra walking, but you know, that's the theme of the trip is
absolutely.
logging 20,000 steps each day.
Love it. My kind of trip. It's amazing. At home, I like struggle to hit my 10, and then I go on a trip and it's like 37,000 steps per day. I'm just kidding. I don't think I've ever actually done that. Maybe I did in Acadia, but that was a lot of walking. All right. Well, so we're in San Diego. We're at the zoo. We're wrapping it up. And then you go back to the hotel. You enjoy your evening there. Anything special for dinner that night?
Well, so we started the day at McDonald's and we ended the day. This is not my finest money-saving moment. Although I can still tie it into travel hacking because the Amex Gold has a dining credit,
Yes, it does.
$10 every month, to either Grubhub or restaurants, a couple special restaurants, Shake Shack, Cheesecake Factory. Well, lo and behold, what is right beside the Manchester Grand Hyatt but a Cheesecake Factory?
Oh, with the world's largest menu.
Oh my gosh, the world's largest menu. So after being at the zoo all day, we decided to grow out in a just blaze of glory at the Cheesecake Factory.
Honestly, though, right now that Amex also has a 20% back dining, like on all of your dining, and you get 4x points. So I'm just saying,
Yeah, I
really,
actually even have, it's crazy. Right now I have a special bonus multiplier on my Amex Gold because you used my referral link. Thank you
you're
very
welcome.
much.
You're
And so
welcome.
I'm getting 14 times the points at all restaurants for 3 months.
Oh my
So,
gosh. I don't think I even
I
realized it
know.
was that high. Holy cow.
It's clear
Someone
the
go
points are
use my
piling up.
referral link. I didn't see that as an offer in mine, though. They didn't tell
I
me
think
that
you
that would
had
happen.
it, but it was ending soon, so I
Oh,
don't know
oh.
when it ended. But at the time when you signed up, that it triggered that deal for me. So yeah, 14 times the points has definitely taken the sting off of how much we have eaten out lately with this spring break trip, and then my little
Yes.
overnight to New York City with the kids.
Yes.
So we're gonna need to lock it down. Mama's gonna have to pick
Rein
up
it back in.
a few more shifts at the hospital in the next couple weeks.
More shifts in Aldi. Any last thoughts you want to leave us with on this trip?
I will definitely post the itinerary on
Mhm.
Instagram if anybody wants to look it up. It really was a great, it's a compact trip, but we felt like we saw so much because we started kind of just north of LA and we circled down to San Diego. We felt like we got a really good feel in such a short amount of time for Southern California. And of course, there's so much more to do there. We would love to go back, and there'll be a whole nother chunk of things to do, list of things to do on the itinerary, but this was pretty jam packed to get 2 national parks in, and then an amusement park and the zoo. I think it was really kind of an epic trip for us that I think our kids will remember for a long time.
Absolutely. And I'm very impressed. It was a lot and it was well orchestrated. And to be honest, I would give anything for a husband that planned All the details. That is so nice.
It's true. I buy the flights and I buy the hotels, and then he kind of takes it from there with his little spreadsheet of details for each day. So I'm forever grateful.
That is teamwork. I love it. Well, thank you for sharing with us today. And I don't know.
Thank you for having me, Jo.
You're so welcome. You're welcome here anytime. You're a friend of the pod now. What is wrong with me?
I think we get delirious when we film together.
I think so too. We just feed off of each other's energy. It's out of control and the people are done with us. So I think we should let them go about their day. Thank you all for tuning in today, and we will see you here next time. If you enjoyed this show today, please consider writing us a review or clicking 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please subscribe and follow along so that you never miss an episode.
You can follow the podcast on Instagram or YouTube at Wonderland on Points Podcast. You can find me on Instagram at Family Travel for the Win with the number 4.
And you can find me on Instagram at Points to Wonderland.
If you're thinking about getting a new travel rewards credit card, consider using the links in our show notes. Using our links helps to support us and keep our podcast going so we can provide you with all the latest tips and tricks when it comes to traveling on points.
And if you aren't sure which card is right for you, shoot us an email at wonderlandonpoints@gmail.com, and we would be happy to walk you through a free card consultation. That's also a great place to send us all of your comments and questions. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you here next time.